shorts. Temp song. Nice shorts. Yeah.
Howdy hey, and welcome to Nice Shorts.
I'm Fu Yang.
And I'm Johnny Niddle.
And this is a show where we interview animators about the shorts they make.
Today we have Bailey and Natalie.
Bailey and Natalie are currently fourth-year animation students at Sheridan College.
That's that school up there in the Canada up there.
Both of them are addicted to rigging.
And animating those rigs to do animated rig things.
You will usually find Bailey doing fan art of data since he's a die-hard Trekkie.
Natalie will be found doing cooking-related things, even if it's cooking in Breath of the Wild.
So join us as we hear how they navigated doing their third-year group film, Till Death Brings Us Together.
And how they push to help make the school experience better for future students.
And now on with the show.
Hello.
Oh, yeah.
I'm Bailey McLeod. I like rigs. I like animating. I'm a fourth year at Sheridan. And I love Star Trek.
Oh, we're going to talk about data in a bit.
Oh, no.
Oh, boy. This is going to be turned to a Star Trek interview, actually.
Yeah.
I'm Natalie. A lot of things overlap with me and Bailey. We're practically the same person except for the Star Trek stuff. I'm also a fourth-year Sheridan animation student. I do rigging. I do animation. I like cooking, and I like playing Breath of the Wild and cooking in Breath of the Wild.
Oh, my God. The overlap.
I know.
Nice.
What I do in life, I do in games. It's all the same to me.
My favorite thing to do is cook food I can't eat. I love it.
It's just fun watching the ingredients bounce around and the little music jingle go.
Oh, nice.
Absolutely not hating on that. So fourth years, and you are right now working on your thesis films.
Yes. Yes, we are.
And that's totally not stressful at all.
No, I did, no work on my thesis this week.
Oh, same.
I was doing chores and stuff.
It's not too bad, I think, because the only person to rely on or disappoint is yourself. At the moment, right? Like, compared to group films where it was like, I don't know if it's harder or easier, but definitely there isn't a group of people who, if you don't, do the things, then you're going to fail them, so.
Plus, we have a more open schedule in fourth year.
We do have a much nicer school schedule in
have
fourth
more time
year,
off.
so yeah, it's been less stressful overall.
Your group project.
Oh, yeah.
And also the schedule. It's so different from this year. So would you like to start too?
Schedule.
Student experience. Yeah.
So in third year, everyone was put into a group of 9 to 11, 9 to 12?
I think we were on the low end, actually. It was
13?
11 to 14.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Some people had more, yeah.
We were put in a group of that many students, and we had to do it all online. We used Discord, and some people were not familiar with Discord, so it was a bit of a learning curve there. And we had 8 months to make a film, and we ended up making a 5-minute film.
Yeah.
Not a good idea.
Start to finish, a month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'd say less than that because
'cause you have
the
to-
school semester.
We got cut.
Yeah.
We got 2 weeks cut off total.
Yeah.
So one cut off
So-
first semester and one cut off second semester. Because usually you get 14 weeks. We got 13 weeks each
semester, yeah.
semester.
That's also while going through classes. So let's pretend.
Yes. And
Let's pretend
looking
it
for
was
a job.
production.
And making
Right.
a portfolio. And doing interviews. And eating. And sleeping. And showering. And
Wow.
doing
Just do what
chores.
Natalie does. Cook in the game. You don't have to eat it. Save you time.
Right.
Wait a minute.
That's not food. Because you both did your summer internships at
Yes.
normal animation studios. Pretend it was a studio and you're doing production. How long do you think of time you really had to do it?
If we didn't count the classes and stuff.
Yeah.
If we were just focusing on our film.
Yeah.
That would have been phenomenal.
I think it would have taken us It's hard
See,
to
I
say.
think it would have taken the same amount of time,
but we could have
with
put
far
more.
less
We could have
stress.
put more stuff into it. Like we could have put more like time into it. Like it would have
Okay.
taken. I think like taking 8 months to do like a 5-minute thing, like through pre-production all the way to production and like compositing and stuff. I think that's a reasonable amount. Just we were kind of half-assing some stuff because it was like we just have to get it done. There were some extra stuff we could have put in, but we didn't have time for, basically.
And I think the difficult part, like when we got into production, there was so much to animate, but we have classes, but people are doing co-op search, but people have interviews throughout the weeks. And so it felt very tight to get all that animation done. I calculated out how many seconds of animation we need done each week.
It was like 5.
And I was like, 11?
11? Oh.
So, I don't know.
Oh,
Anyways,
total, yeah.
It was,
But per person,
the
it
whole
was
week.
like 4.
per person, it was like, I need this much from each of you each week, and it wasn't going to happen because it wasn't like a full work week on the film.
Yeah.
You give someone a 30 to 40 hour work week to do those seconds, that's great. Like, they can do it. It's not stressful, but given that we had 20 hours of classes in
Plus,
that
some
week,
people had part-time jobs, and they were in different time
Everything
zones.
overlapping. Okay.
One of our group
someone was
members,
in Korea.
was in. She was like, "I'm getting up when everyone's asleep, yay!" And I was like, "Oh no, I'm so sorry."
Oh, yeah.
just 8 months there.
Because on the East Coast, Korea is exactly 12 hours off from us, right?
Yeah.
Yep,
So
he
we
had a night.
tried to accommodate, but she was essentially a night owl for 8 months.
which is horrible for your health.
Yeah.
Pretty bad. Yeah.
What are your role in this short film, the group project?
What they started as, and then we'll go into what they became.
So in pre-production, I was on the story team, and I was on the social media team. We all did character design, but there were like specific designers. I was mostly storyboard, but storyboard like did a lot of revising.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I started as. What did you start as, Natalie?
I think I was also on story. Was I on social media with you? I believe
Yeah.
so. And not that much else, to be honest. I didn't touch a lot of pre-production. I think I typed script stuff.
You did, yeah.
Sorry, it was script driven?
We had to write a script to begin with.
We have to write a script because it's part of the
Which
curriculum.
I think you should just go into boarding, but
You just retrofit the script, like, oh, this is what we meant. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of.
Perfect.
So there was a script,
we did start
but we
with
didn't stick
the
with it very
script,
long.
Yeah.
The script is written by the story team, or it's demand for everyone?
Started with everyone boarding, and then there was just a story team. Because it ended up being like too much going through 11 people to give different parts. I would compile the storyboards, and usually I would present them. Sometimes it wasn't me presenting. It was like between a bunch of us. And then into production, I was the rigging lead. I did the props, but I also oversaw the timelines of the rigs, and made sure like any fixes got done. Basically, I was on the sound team. I did the Foley of the film, and
You did do the Foley.
and I put the sound effects in.
You did a great
I
job.
did
in the closet.
animation. Oh, thank you. I did animation, and I helped with compositing, and I did the final edit of the film.
Yes. As the semester went on, or the second semester came, I was the only compositor so far, but that didn't have to happen till later. I did eventually acquire a team of people to help me, but I was compositing lead. I was the rigger for the wife and I guess the husband in the end. I rigged characters. I was initially something called a scene coordinator, but that evolved into me just becoming project manager later on.
I'm kind of curious that when you say you were assigned to the group project, instead already they have some kind of format to say, hey, you guys can have a team for story, a team for social media. Like, how's that formed? Or it's just from the group's idea?
We kind of had that. So they give you like a guide.
It's a little bit both.
They're like, here's what you maybe should have. Like, they're like, you should at least have a layout and a story team, like a design and a story team kind of thing. But the more specific stuff, like the social media, was us. At the beginning of the year, they're supposed to like be like, what are your strengths? And people write down story, layout, animation, and then they split up the groups into that. They did not do that for our year. So some group films had like almost entirely layout people. Which made animating really hard. That was a lot of group films, actually.
I think there's a lot of layout artists.
Yeah, but they didn't even like
or concept.
They didn't even like ask what our strengths were, so they could like divide it evenly. So that caused a lot of problems during group film.
I think to be a little bit fair to them, they cut a week off of our semester, and so the sooner we started, the better. This year, they haven't cut a week off the semester, and I'm hearing from the third years, it's week 2. It's the end of week 2, and I don't know if they have their groups yet.
Oh, wow.
Which is very, very bad, because that means they've lost 2 weeks rather than just us losing 1 week.
Yeah. It's not moving on. Yeah.
I don't know what's happening with the professors. There's been some issues with like getting a 3D group or a stop mode group that's big enough, but I don't think that's a great excuse. So on some level, I do wish they organized us more, but in our group, it worked out okay. So
yeah, we had some like varied strengths in different areas, so it was good.
Ooh, your backgrounds! Oh my god,
they are very beautiful. Funny story about that, Bailey. Do you want me to? We were like, look, this film's kind of long. We want to keep it simple. There's only like 2 characters, really. So that shouldn't be too bad. And let's just do UPA style. Like, let's do UPA. We kept saying UPA style for the backgrounds
simple
and whatever.
Shapes,
like, we want it super, super simple.
Yeah.
Question.
Yes, Johnny.
What is UPA style? For the non-animator person.
Yeah, no problem. UPA was a studio back in the years. Give me years. I don't know.
1940s ish. Like that's when it.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like that classic, like flat style. Think like Gerald McBoing.
If you know Gerald McBoing,
Rudy Toot Toot. It was an American. Yeah. It was called the United Productions of America. UPA was the name of the studio.
I think a lot of the founders came out of Disney, like they were not.
Is this like the Earl Ivan kind of stuff? Like Sleeping Beauty, like where it's like the really cool backgrounds of the trees.
Kind of. It's kind of like that, but it's more simple. It's like very jazzy.
They do
it's jazzy looking.
Limited animation.
Yes. Just focus on color and the shape and simplified. It's more of their style. It's more like motion graphics somehow. Like
it's where a lot of like modern cartoon. You see like modern cartoons like Danny Phantom, Fairly Odd Parents, Dexter's Lab. Yeah, that stuff like evolved from UPA. Like they take like that kind of like stylized thing and they're like a modernized version of it.
Perfectly see it now, where it's like just like splotches of color that give you a hint of like what is there. Like if Kandinsky or Cleve did a background.
Everything's relatively flat looking, but it isn't animated entirely flat.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I think at the end we were just talking because we finally were all sitting down and compositing together, and we got to chat, and we're like, what happened to the whole UPA thing? And the layout lead said, I actually didn't know what that was, so I just went with my usual style. And that's why they're so beautiful and elaborate and beautifully rendered and detailed. But I was like, we have so many layouts. Don't.
Let's do limited animation. We ended up doing like full animation. Just like, I
think we made it a little harder for ourselves in that sense, but it also turned out beautiful, and hopefully no one got injured. So I'm quite happy with where the film ended up. I'm just like a little sad that we stressed out so hard because
it was
we didn't understand UPA.
Stressful.
Yeah.
But you rigged and animated in Toon Boom Harmony.
We did. We did.
Yes.
Like, that's
we
cool.
certainly did. The only software we know. Group film was definitely like, I remember towards the end, we had to composite the whole film in that week. Just me, the moment I roll out of bed, eat something, 12 hours in this chair, and then I'm like, have we composited enough scenes? And going to sleep, and then up again.
You say your laptop bricked right after you finished compositing.
Oh,
And then you ended
me.
up... Yeah.
My lovely, lovely laptop of 6 years at that point, which I hadn't realized. And it was failing throughout the entire group film. Often at blue screen or I don't know what else.
It was
Disconnect from
often
things.
I'd like keep like a track of like, oh, Natalie hasn't said that her screen has blacked out today yet. I'm like, be careful, Natalie. it's gonna happen. Back up your stuff. And then she'd be like, I blue screened.
Oh no.
No.
The issue was I ordered a new computer, like my first desktop, and it was a powerful one, but it wasn't gonna, because of COVID delays, it wasn't gonna ship to me until after the film finished.
That was so funny.
So it's like, at least I have it for a co-op, I said to myself, but oh man.
There was like, we had like contingencies if Natalie's thing died. I was like, you can use my Surface Pro. And Natalie's like, no, I'll use my roommate's. I was like, oh my god. And like, I had this fear because I was editing it. I was afraid the render was going to take forever. But since we did all the compositing in Toon Boom, all it was like kind of pre-rendered, so only small edits were in the actual like thing in Premiere because we used Toon Boom to composite and animate, and Premiere to put the whole thing together with the sound and stuff. So I was afraid when I brought all the files together in Premiere, it was going to take forever to render. I was like, Natalie, I'm giving us like 4 days to render. Like,
we were on call when you hit render.
Then, like,
it was very dramatic.
It was like 20 minutes later it was done. I was like... I was like... Oh.
We were both on call just like, it's going, it's moving so fast.
We were like... Those last, like, couple of days, like, me and Natalie were, like, on call, like, every single day with each other for, like, almost the entire day. Like, listening to, like, the Groovy bot or whatever in Discord. And, like...
Yeah.
It was really funny because, like, as, like, Natalie said before, like, compositing, when we brought that team in there, that was the only time we really talked to our group. Like, in all, like, casually, all
in one group,
at once. And we find out all this stuff that was happening. I'm like, why didn't you tell us? We could have helped.
Yeah.
But I'm really proud of my group members because a lot of them were afraid of using rigs. Understandably so. Rigs are hard to use. But, like, a couple of them really picked them up and, like, were animating like machines. Shout out to Anaya. Shout out to Anaya.
Anaya share.
You fucking carried.
Yeah. She actually did so many scenes and some very nice animation.
Yes. With rigs.
Some of the montage. With the
Yeah.
rigs.
I was so impressed.
Figured it out.
I was so impressed with her.
And you said she like never used rigs before to animate, right?
Not really. Not really?
I think we're forced to at some point in our school
She wasn't comfortable
curriculum.
with them, though.
Got it.
But she wasn't super confident with it,
Yeah.
no. And I don't think most people are, actually.
Yeah. Me and Natalie made a bunch of tutorials,
stepped up.
though, on, like, how to animate stuff.
You are saying that for the rig, it is demanded from school, like they want you to use this skill, or it's your choice?
It's your choice.
I think, wasn't there at least one course where we had to use rigs, or was that
that's 2D,
an elective?
2D, which
Okay,
is
yeah,
kind
we
of
do
an
a
elective.
2D class. Oh,
Because you can choose 2D or 3D.
right. So if you don't go into the 3D stream, you do use a rig at some point during school.
And you're
But
taught how to use them.
It's a good intro, but it's not, because it's only like 2 hours a week. For a couple months.
you can't go
like,
into as
You need
depth.
more practice.
And a lot of people are like, oh, hand-drawn. Like, I'll just do hand-drawn. It's like, oh, the TV industry is rigged.
Oh, okay.
That sentence
That's
is
the
pretty funny.
reason
The TV industry is rigged.
for the speed to finish that production. That's why you guys think rig will be more efficient. Because I do see your hand draw animation. That's amazing. But is that like, yeah, you worry that you cannot finish in your production timeline wise. Okay.
Because rigs save from cleanup. Because they're already clean. Okay. They already have the lines. They already look like the final thing. With hand drawn, you have to do a rough, and then you have to clean up, and then you have to color. And oh my god, it takes so long to clean up. That is my least favorite part of the process. That is why I use rigs, even though rigs have like a technical difficulty to them, because sometimes they break, and it's like hell trying to figure out how to fix it. Like they come with their own challenges. Like hand drawn is more straightforward in the technical aspect, not in the actual like animation, but like in the process, it's more straightforward. If you want an arm to move a certain way, you just draw it moving that way. With 2D, it's a little bit more particular about flipping and skewing. Sometimes you have with 2D animation, if you tween a flip, it will do like a Paper Mario flip where you like see the side of the 2D page, so it looks like it's like disappears for a minute. So you have to like key it so it like goes there, and then like untween that like flip, and then it's so
a lot of technical you need to fix. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds fun.
I like it.
It is fun.
Once you get the hang of it, it's fun.
You just make a promise yourself. No one is ever going to move. Every animation from now on is going to be just, this is them.
Hello.
Move. Yeah. Seidel.
Every time I animate, I'm like, who invented this? I curse them from the year 2021.
Natalie knows this. Every time I go to do a rig, I have to relearn how to rig. But it gets faster every time. Like, I'll be like, oh man, how do you do an auto touch? And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, this is how.
You just click around a few times. You're like, all right.
Totally.
Johnny totally knows what we're talking about.
I do, 100%. I thought you guys had people still some reason doing 2D roughs, though. Also, almost a cleanup point, no?
The film is actually a mix of hand-drawn and rigged, because not everybody was comfortable in the end using the rigs. But of course, the rigs are so much faster, more scenes are rigged. So even if only like 4 or 5 of us were using them consistently, there's like a few, I think there's more scenes with the rig in it.
I cannot tell which scene is which. So how do you maintain that to be consistent of the look?
We made a guide.
A guide?
Yeah, so we made like a guide that was like, this is how it looks. We designed the rig characters, like, so Natalie made the rigs, and then all the cleanup artists had to reference the rigs, how they looked in certain scenes. So I went through in every scene, like, compared, like, different shots, like, with the rigs in them to see the different size brushes in each one. So if someone was cleaning up farther away, they don't have a giant brush, they would reference the screenshot and be like, okay, this is the size here. So it would look more consistent.
Well, it sounds like you basically animated the scenes twice then. Like, Natalie did the rigs and moved, or did you not actually? Was it just
I just imported the rigs in with no animation, just standing there so you could see the thickness of the line.
So the poor 2D hand-drawn artists had to do their best to not look hand-drawn and look like a rig?
Need to be on model, right?
Yeah, I think regardless when you do a hand-drawn animation, you want to be on model, right? Like, a bunch of different animators are drawing the same like character through these scenes. How do you keep that consistent, right? So if they can do that well, and if the person doing rigged animation can make theirs look, lively and not robotic, then I think it comes together pretty seamlessly. If everyone's doing what they're supposed to do, it shouldn't be a problem to do a mix. I think the new Looney Tunes, I saw someone talk about like in the roughs of a scene how some of it was hand drawn, some of it was rigged, and you really couldn't tell. Like, it's well done.
Is there a benefit to, like, because I remember seeing the warp? Is that what you call it? The warp shots where you deformed the rig to move and add the blurs and everything.
Yeah.
Is there an advantage to not do rigged for some of that?
Yes. So for my film personally, like my thesis film, there are some shots that are really skewed, and deforming the rig to fit in them and like actually work like in the motion that you want is way too much trouble. So you'd just be better off hand drawing it. If with any extreme
Might take longer, yeah.
with any extreme shots or like extreme motions that you can't bend the rig into, you hand draw it. But rigs are good for like some simple movements, sometimes some more complicated movements too. But you just have to know how far the rig will go, and like, would this be better hand drawn or would this be better rigged in this scene? You know,
Yeah.
because you want them to save time.
Is your thesis going to be rigged or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have to show off my one skill. But for sure, my thesis, I've been told by my roommate, it's like, this is simple enough. You could probably just hand draw it. Like, you really don't need to. But I was like, I want to show off that I can rig, so I really should
job.
like make rigs for the sake of what I'm looking for, right? But yeah, I just have 2 characters. Well, 3. One of them is 3 ducks stacked on each other.
Yeah.
So I just make that one rig and stack them.
It would be a very special rig for the duck.
Don't do this, but I thought it would be hilarious if the bottom one was actually a goose. So it'd be duck, duck, goose.
Oh, that's really funny. Wait, maybe I'll steal that.
Have
Johnny.
it. Take it.
All right, cool. Yes, let me start boarding when the bottom one's a goose. It'll look just slightly different in the beak, but you'll be like, is that a goose? Yeah. But I'm definitely rigging that.
Okay, Natalie want to rig it. How about
Yeah.
Bailey?
Oh yeah, I'm rigging mine. I've already started rigging my doing the breakdowns of my main guy. I have a lot of characters, so I'm going to be making a lot of rigs. I was like, oh no. Some of the characters will just be hand drawn, like the background characters that enter the elevator after a bit, I think are just going to be hand drawn because I'm not making that many rigs. Or they'll just be front facing rigs, not fully rotational ones. Because I need to draw the line or else I'm going to die.
I did help with finding our sound guy, which was Johnny,
Oh yeah,
our wonderful musician.
Yeah, I also helped.
Yeah, we were the ones hunting for our composer and
giving Johnny notes about stuff.
And like a gift from the heavens, Johnny descended into our inbox.
Yeah,
An excellent demo.
when we got his, we were like, oh my god, he like specifically put specific playlists, like tracks on his playlist for our film, like, and I was like, oh, he actually like went through and chose specific. I was like, oh, these are good.
Yeah.
So yeah, we chose.
It was incredible.
I'm surprised people don't do that.
No, we just got links to their website, and there was just a bunch of different stuff.
You were the only one, I think.
So composers, if you want to impress someone, put specific tracks catered to the project that you're applying to.
Beyond that, like, don't just send someone to a site. Like, don't ever send someone to a place where they don't know what to do.
Exactly.
Like,
yes.
I'm sorry. Like a restaurant doesn't go, hey, we're at that block. It's like, where the f*** are you? Like how do I?
We've hit a nerve. Johnny's like, oh.
People have this weird thing of like, so it's called like a call to action. Every time you send an email or talk to someone, there should be like a thing that you want them, like tell them what you want them to do.
Look
like
at least.
Yeah, like don't make them do work. If you add work to their life at the beginning, imagine what they're going to think you're going to do for the rest of the project. Anyway, pet peeve.
Johnny helped a lot. He did like the levels of our film and like the mixing, and he made it sound all beautiful and nice.
What kind of platform that you guys reach out for composers? Is that usually the school has certain platform, or is just by yourself to reach out? And also, at what point that you bring Johnny into this production?
You take this one, Natalie.
Okay, sure. So there is no platform given to us by the school. They didn't really hand us anything about composers, and they actually didn't warn us when we should have composers. But we figured before production, like as soon as we could get our animatic, like close to getting nailed down, we should have someone working on the music. So I think early January was when we brought Johnny on board. I really don't recall. Maybe late December.
Yeah.
And what we did was we just made a fun post on Twitter and Instagram. And we actually, there was a decent amount of people who responded. I think
There was a lot. I
Maybe
wasn't
20.
expecting that much.
yeah, we thought maybe only a small handful, but Johnny happened to see our post thanks to someone else in animation who he was following
No,
or something.
I don't remember who.
Yeah, somebody retweeted us and Johnny saw it. And so we just had an email in the post and was like, yeah, send us your stuff and your rates or whatever. And it's
We're like, by the way, we're poor.
by the way, we're students. Sorry, we can't pay you a lot. But yeah, we just reached out into the great wide web and we got Johnny somehow, and it was fantastic. And I think mainly Bailey and I, because we were the social media people, we talked to Johnny because we ran the email and stuff like that too. So
Yeah. As for the school having any like platform, they don't really have a platform like Natalie said, but they do encourage. There's like a partnership they have with like, I forget what school. It might be
UTM.
U of T or something.
U of T, Mississauga.
that's-
Yeah.
Yeah, so with the music program, where students, they get like credits for like doing music to shorts, and
that's
so
rad.
it's kind of like a parasocial relationship.
Oh, okay.
We use them for our assignments, and they use us for their assignments.
I think you meant parasitic. I'm not sure. Symbiotic.
Oh, parasitic. Yeah, that's what I meant. Not parasocial. That's the wrong word. I know English.
Parasocial is like some kind of trooper on Instagram or something. I like it.
It's like when you
That's
stand.
what social media people. I don't know why I said parasocial.
Symbiotic.
I think that's fantastic.
Symbiotic.
I think I've told this story to Fu a million times already, and I think you too. But like, when I went to Cal State Fullerton music composition program, animation was there, but not really. And they had a club, and my professor was like, "Well, if you want to work with animators, go over there and just hit them up." And I'm like, I was too shy and nervous. While I was there, in the same building in music theater department, which I wasn't, I was music composition, and in the animation department was Megan Nicole Dong, the creator of Centaur World.
Wow.
Oh my god.
I was like, I found out what year she was there in an interview. And I was like, if I wouldn't have been. It's not like I would have worked on it with her or anything. But like, if I had just gotten the courage to go down and work with the animators, I could have met. It's like
You
like
never
she was
know.
in the same building. I'm like, just a floor beneath us. I'm like, oh,
So cool.
so
Moral of
frustrating.
the story: don't be afraid to mix with other programs. Like go
I
to
think
those
that
like
was my
fun
call.
mixer things. Like
Yeah.
I know there was some like when the school wasn't down for COVID. There used to be like drink and draw things where like a bunch of other programs would come to the marquee and we'd just all draw. There was illustration students, game design students, like musical theater, like anyone who wanted to draw, and you'd just all talk. It
mixture.
was really nice. Yeah. So like, don't be afraid to go outside of your program. You might meet someone cool, make a new friend, or like find out someone who needs like animation for something. Not that you should make friends just to get jobs.
No,
But like, you never know where
you
things
should make
lead.
friends to make friends.
Yeah.
Like, college is great with the teachers, they're fine, but I think seeing you two together, it's like your peers are what will carry you through it, and where you get to really grow and learn. And that is my biggest regret is I talked to a lot of musicians, but I could have done more. And looking back, I was like, dang it.
Yeah, that's
But
like one of the biggest like things that I like about Sheridan's animation program is the camaraderie you get with the other students. It was kind of taken away with online learning. We don't talk as much. But in the studio, you can just go up to someone and be like, "Hey, what you working on there?" And they're like, "What the are you doing behind me?" "Oh, I'm drawing a dog." I'm like, "Oh, that's a great dog." If my dog and your dog kiss, and they're like, "Oh my god."
That is how I hope every interaction for the rest of your life goes. What are you doing? Drawing a dog. They should kiss. Like just
Slap the two pieces of paper.
Yeah.
Just come
Make the
together.
dogs kiss.
just slam it on their forehead and go, "My dog likes you," and just walk away.
When you have your very first animatic, how does the sound or music you are thinking about, and how's the collaboration going with Johnny? Like, any direction change or things?
So I guess I'll start this off because I was the one who chose the music and stuff for Leica. And okay, so I was like, guys, you need to give me like 2 days or a day to do this. They gave it to me last minute, right before it was due. So just as a defense for myself. So I was doing it in like a couple of hours before it was due.
Okay.
So I just went on to like a sound, like the school gives us like a sound library.
Yeah.
So I went to like the sound ideas library and just picked music that fit the atmosphere of each like section.
Okay.
So it didn't really have a particular style of the era. I was just like, so there was a part, like the beginning is sad, and then it gets like really chaotic. So I like chose like game show music or something there, and then like when the explosion of the house happens, I have like hard rock going like. And I was just like, this is not what the actual film is going to sound like. This is just the feeling.
The feeling
of that
okay.
section. Like I want it to feel like this. And like
Okay.
my group was like, this music is terrible. And I was like, I'm sorry you gave me less than a day to work on this. What do you want from me? And Johnny was like, oh, when I gave it to Johnny, he's like, oh, this gives me a great idea on how to work on this. Like you did a good job picking the moves. I'm like, Johnny, please.
I still think you did. No, I still think you did.
I laugh every time at the the hard
I'm
rock
gonna come in
part.
and defend you. After this is done, I'm gonna come back in and defend you for it. But continue, please.
I think Johnny went way above and beyond all expectations and just kind of blew us away. I don't think, for me, I didn't have any clear idea of what it would sound like. I was just like, it'll be pretty and whatever, background music, older
We were like,
jazzy
do
style.
like 50s
Yeah.
kind of.
And then Johnny
thing.
just came in and blew us all away. I remember our teammates hearing the music for the first time and absolutely losing
Oh, that
it.
was great.
Oh man, they're like,
Because me and Natalie were like in this little like secret club where we like knew what the music sounded like, and they were like, "Oh man, I'm looking forward to the music," but I don't think anyone expected it to be as good as we showed them like Johnny's like demo reel, and we're like, "It's gonna be awesome." They're like, "Oh, that's so good!" And then we like when we finally like had like the rough sketches of like most of the film, we like sent it to our group and we're like, yeah. And like everyone was like, holy shit, this is a real film.
they were losing it. Yeah, the music
Like, this is what we've been saying.
absolutely elevated it. Like not the same without Johnny's music. This film, and it was fantastic.
amazing.
Hearing
Nice
the
to hear.
reactions. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Johnny, you were saying that it's helpful from what the team offer you. The
Yeah,
animate. So,
I thought he did a great job. So Bailey.
yeah.
So okay, first off, it opens up with Johnny and Santos sleepwalk. I remember that. The mood of what you wanted to hear was present in all of your temp music. That's important. I know you didn't want metal because like you seriously had it was like a random generic like
Yeah.
hard rock like power metal kind of thing happening. I was like, yeah, that's not what they want, but the mood was right. Like I all of the stuff you put in captured the same feeling, but by a different ensemble of musicians. Fine. Your art, your story, your character design, everything else was the things that you do have agency over, like that's your field. All of that was exactly perfectly on the same mood. Like the backgrounds alone, thank God the
they were
person like
amazing.
said, I don't know what UPA is and was too sad to say anything.
They're
Because like
gorgeous. They're amazing.
and,
Shout out
and
to Leo
the texture, it was everything. It was the coloring, the texture of the actual art. I looked at it, I'm like, oh, I know what they want. Like it was just as soon as you see it, like I know what they want. And then
We just didn't have the music language for it.
No, and you're not musicians. I mean, your sister is.
Yes. Hi,
But-
Sydney.
Yeah. A really, really cool trombonist in a really cool named ensemble called the Brass Bitches.
Yes.
I love it.
Quick detour to shout out the brass bitches.
Yeah, but it's just cool. But like everything you were able to translate the sound into a visual medium, you did. Like the characters, like the hat, the jacket, which I think now, based on your thesis film, you just like trench coats. That's fine.
I didn't design the husband. That was not me.
Yeah, it
I
wasn't
did
us.
just like that trench coat.
But both of your fourth year films have a character that wears a coat that's the same coat.
I just like trench coats.
Subconscious
Yeah, I know. You can't get away
husband
from it.
influence, Bailey.
We've been poisoned.
But yeah, so I knew what you wanted. And then I think something that's common for students is they forget, like you have a composer, you have someone, you basically have a deformer. Like it's not like you have someone who's coming in to give you a music that can change. That's the whole point. Not just like a music editor. It's like has to edit based on what they have. So I knew we could hit stuff. And when you saw the demo, one of my initial sketches, you're like, I remember one of you's like, oh, we could do that. I'm like, yeah, we could hit every little comedic moment.
It was really cool. We used like QDB, which was cool.
Yeah.
So it was your first time using it and our first time using it. It was
Yeah.
really cool. I liked going through and like being like commenting on the specific spots and being like, I really love this like clarinet twiddle here. Or like, I don't know, it was really cool working with a composer who like was really receptive to feedback, because me and Natalie were just like, you know, could it maybe be more like this? And then Johnny would go and do it, and we're like, yeah, like that was, I don't know, it was really cool just being
It
able
felt
to like
fun and
affect
collaborative.
music.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
collaborative rather than like, I don't know.
It is.
We became friends, which was really cool too, right? It wasn't
Yeah.
just like client and the guy we
Yeah.
hired. So that really,
We always had a fun time talking with Johnny.
we always went
Oh
over.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as a composer from Johnny's side, is that like the track help, and at that time the visual design helps you, and also later on your guys' written notes helps. Is that how it
Yeah.
works out? Okay. Yeah,
well,
I'm glad.
Temp music usually really helpful.
I'll make sure to mix some really good temp music for you for my thesis.
Well, here's it. Well, no. So it's one of those like it depends, right? So yours was a rare case of the temp music all showed what you wanted, but luckily we all knew it's not what you wanted to hear. So it's one of those like you weren't married to it at all.
Yeah.
Whereas if you had picked, like if you were a music editor or a music supervisor and you had an immense knowledge of every possible thing to pull from and you put in like the perfect score stuff,
Yeah.
then my job is very different. And still, I mean, like then we kind of know exactly what you want more or less.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to suddenly
It's more
give you-
emulating kind of. In that sense,
it's
right.
finding, instead of just going like, oh, I kind of get what they want. It's like, okay, so that's what they want. How do we give them that without giving them that exact thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Like so it's like if I gave you 7 colors and go, I want you to draw me a picture with these 7 colors, and you give me 7 different colors, I'd be like, what?
Yeah.
So it's the temp
Really-
music thing is very interesting. That's a whole long talk on its own. Yeah.
Highly recommend anyone who is making a short film, if they can hire a composer. It's so cool because as someone who works a lot with sound stuff and like being stuck with like warping the sound or like cutting it, it's like so much easier just to be like, hey, can you put this here? And then they're like, yeah. And then it's like that. And you're like, holy shit. Instead of like cutting, like I have like cut songs in like specific areas and like melded them together to like make them fit. It's just so much easier. Maybe it's obvious, but it's just so much easier to get a composer to do it for you.
Full disclaimer, I don't think any student and most studios couldn't afford to have paid the actual price for what we did.
Yes,
No.
Just because
we
We got extremely good
extreme
deal.
discount. I think
Or
we had a
like
deal.
this-
We had a deal.
but even just the Queen's Cartoonists, like I mean, just to get 6 live musicians in a studio to play stuff that is old jazz is like, yeah.
It's amazing.
Of
Thank you,
dollars.
Queen's Cartoonists.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
yeah.
we hand them our film once it's able to premiere.
Yeah, they're going to
Publicly.
be playing it on their tour, which will be really cool. I want to go
Yeah.
to one of their concerts. If they come near Canada, just for us. just like go to
Yeah.
Minnesota
Well,
or something.
They're really close to you. They're in New York.
Yeah, go to New York. We'll go see your New York show.
Yeah.
When
And
COVID isn't.
I can go there in like couple hours now.
Heck yeah.
New York is like a 2-hour drive from me now, New York City.
See Johnny in real life.
Yeah. Are they already start to perform the short
Not that.
film soundtrack? Not yet,
No,
but
No,
in the
not
future?
this, no.
Yeah,
They-
in the future.
Yeah, that was one of the contingencies. Well, they wanted to is they would like to have done it live. So that was another thing for me is I had to write a score that because sometimes you write a score and you can basically chop up the cues however you need to and do really gnarly things that aren't as easy to do live. But we had to do a score specifically that I knew they could perform live.
Like continuously.
So I could have adjusted it after, but I was like, I'll just do it right the first time.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things was like, okay, just make sure it was something that they could play.
Okay.
Super impressive.
So there was no, each musician, someone not each, but the horns, they have doubles. So they could play 2 different instruments, but not at the same time because they're humans.
Yeah.
So I had to always write for one of the 2 instruments or have when they swap mid cue. That was cool.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's all on Spotify and various music
Yeah, it's available.
stream things.
And Anna Hairstyle.
Hairstad.
Yeah, she is Natalie's friend, right?
Our friend.
Actually,
And
both
my
of your
friend.
friends. I don't want to.
My
I don't
friend
want to.
too.
Is she
She's
sang
in our
on
year.
it?
Yeah.
That was fun.
She
I sent
sings
you.
on the last song with Johnny.
I thought you guys were gonna hate it. I'm like, this is funny. I think they're gonna yell at me. But here, I'm gonna
Oh,
send
we
it.
have such dorky
Oh my
humor.
god. Okay, the story about the theme song. So Johnny, when we were first telling him about our story, he was like, "Oh my god, what if I put like a little like song in the middle of the like montage where she's trying to kill him and she's like, "Hey, I'm the wife. I'm trying to kill you." And he's like, "Oh, please don't kill me." And I'm like, "That's really funny, but I don't know if it's like too short for that." So Johnny's like, "Okay, I'll just keep that in my head." And then like one day when he was working, he was like, "Hey guys, I made a theme song for your film. It's
Slides
really
it in.
silly." And me and Natalie were like, "I love this!" We're like, "Oh my god." He was like, "It doesn't have to be in the film. I just did it for fun." And we're like, "I love it so much." And me and Natalie like listened to it on repeat and we're like, "I'm still singing the song." Like we would go on call with each other and be like, "Hey, I'm the wife. I'm the husband." And we'd be like the song was a little bit different before, so we were like singing that one, and then we were like, "Okay, no, we want this in the film." We sent it to our group, and they're like, "Oh my god, I love the theme song. We have to have this in." So we were like, "Okay, what if it's the credits song?" So we have like a long credits sequence with the theme song that Johnny made, and I love it so much. It's like my favorite part of the film.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite too. Is that also included in the Spotify?
Yeah.
Yes.
That one. Okay, so the music, we will add a link for audience who are interested.
Yeah.
It's a very special collaboration. This short.
You both went into studios for the summer, and you worked and did rigs, both of you, right? And it's funny that the first thing you did, you went in panicking like you were still in college, and they just said, "Yo, chill."
Yes.
I was like kind of burned out from group films, so I was working a bit. Like I was working really fast, like but also like a little bit slower. And they're like, "Wow, you're so fast, Bailey! Like, oh my god, you're on the ball." And I was like, I wasn't slacking. Don't get me wrong. In my co-op, I got like a week to work on a bigger thing instead of like having to do it in like 2 days. So it was really nice to have that time to really go through and make sure everything's right instead of like handing it off to the animator and being like, "This is broken." And it's like, oh god.
What did you learn in real life, day-to-day job needing to rig that you could take back into your work in school?
I learned my workflow better with rigs. Because in school, we don't get the chance to make we don't really have the time to make rigs like that often. I was making a new rig every single day, basically, and I really got to know, like, this is how I start off. Like, I separate it in this way, and I fix all the labels, and I fix all the like, errors with it, and then I start doing the hierarchy and stuff this way. Like, it really helped me know my workflow when I'm rigging. Because before I was like, I don't know, I just kind of do it. But now I'm like, no, I have a game plan. Because for the simpler rigs, I would do them in a day. The longer rigs took me a couple weeks, but like 2 weeks or a week and a half or something. But like the really simple rigs that were like background characters took me a day because they were already separated.
Yeah. I definitely learned, I learned a couple new tricks in Toon Boom. There's
yeah.
always something to learn in Toon Boom Harmony. But I think I also just learned how to be more precise with the way I work with rigs, and I got a lot faster. I think the way our pipeline worked, I rarely had to do any breakdowns, which was very nice.
Breakdowns.
Like sometimes it was handed to me and I was like, oh, joy. And all I have to break is like, maybe they only separated the arm, but not lower arm and upper. But I got more precise with like the joints, the way I like break them down. I got a lot faster with them. I learned like new ways to approach a rig, like having new views through drawing subs rather than actually shifting the pegs, which was fun because I could have independent pivot points. This is getting very technical.
I thought that was so cool, though. The independent pivot points with the drawing subs is so cool, and I'm going to steal that because that's really neat. And also, I
actually like that more now. I like that more than the way we were working before, and I'm like, I might continue.
Plus, like if
you
you have like the substitutions as the different views instead of like deforming into the different views, you can get more precise views that way, and then the animators
and resetting is
and then the animator isn't like muddling the views because there's like set views. I guess I don't know.
Yeah. Like small technical things like that, but also I just worked with the actual like rigger on the productions or at the company was like a really nice guy. His name's Ahmed. He was super precise about things, and when he like gave me reviews and feedback, and he was like, yeah, like this should rotate this way so it's easier for the animators, like, oh, this line's like just a bit too long. And I learned to not be so, I think I was a little careless, not that I didn't like try, but I was definitely more careless with my rigs before, and now I'm like, yeah, I have structure, I know how to approach it, and it's definitely more precise when I work. Yeah.
When you get the assignment on the studio, do they usually just communicate with you with, I hope some joints will move, or are you able to approach the story? Because we need some purpose for the action of the character, so I wish the rig can be somehow doing something. So what kind of direction you got? It's more story-wise?
So for me, for my studio personally, we were given like beat boards and animatics and stuff, so my director would come in and he'd be like, okay, Bailey, we need this rig to do this specific thing. And I was like, okay, I don't know how to quite do that yet because I didn't have anyone like mentoring me in rigging, so I kind of had to figure it out myself. So I was like, I can do this though, and they're like, that works, and I was like, cool. So then I'd like go and do that. But it was really funny because I learned a really easy way to do like flip joints and stuff after from like one of the animation teams. Like, oh, that's awesome. The guys at Smiley Guy showed me how to do like flip joints with like static transformations, and it was like, that's so cool. But yeah, usually it's according to like an animatic or a storyboard. Yeah.
Okay.
I think the pipeline for us was I'm at a fairly established, like, I worked at Tackett Productions, I can say that much. And they're really cool. They're like an Inuit-owned animation studio based in Toronto and in Iqaluit. But I think first of all, it's like children's. I did work on more children's
content
shows, and so content, and so the movements. I think the demands of the rigs aren't as high, right? For like children's animation, it's not going to be super dynamic, have a lot of smears necessarily. This is like preschool age to younger kids. And then also I had rigs to base off of because I didn't really talk to the story people. It just kind of came down the pipeline. Okay, someone's broken up this character. Here it is. Rig it. And all the basics are the same usually, right? Like you want the arms to move, the lower
head,
arms,
neck.
hands. Yeah, the very typical joints that you would do. And then if there's anything like special or specific, I'd go to the rigger and I'd ask him like, hey, how should I tackle this?
Yeah.
But very rarely did I have to work with the story because I think just the animation style didn't call for anything fancy.
Yeah, I was working at Verite, and we're like, well, under the parent company of Verite. But we were like a kind of like government, like finance, like supported show, so it was a bit smaller. We had a very small team, so that's probably why we were working closer with the story.
Nice.
A lot of us were interns from Sheridan. Like a lot of people were from my year, and they brought another studio on to do animation, which was Smiley Guy, and they were really cool. Yeah, they came on later in the summer, so yeah.
It's nice to hear, your experience in studio. And it might be, the bigger studio, the more detail, you just focus on that part. Since your studio is smaller, you can more absorb different position in that.
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
I will say on one of the smaller projects I did like towards the end of my internship, because I touched a couple of things. It was like the lead just sent me the animatic. And so they're like, this character's pretty simple. This is all they do in the scene. And then I would look at that and decide what to rig from there. So sometimes there is that. And also like the animation leads will review my stuff and they know exactly what's going on. So
You're like, make this better.
they were super nice and cool. And they were like, oh yeah, it's good. I was like, are you sure it's good? Well, yeah, no. I'm like, okay.
I love that imposter syndrome. This is good. Are you good? Like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yes,
Are
I
you
start
sure
doubting
about
you.
that?
Doubting me.
That's awesome.
Ear blast.
It's so wild that basically Bailey had like no guidance. Here you go, and Natalie is like, "That's perfect. That's not. That's perfect. That's not."
Well, I had some guidance because our director or project manager, I don't know if this is like actual title, Chris, he was really nice and he would give me like feedback on anything that needed to change with the rig, but I didn't have like an official like rig lead, like someone who understood like more technical stuff about rigging. So yeah, I had to figure stuff out a lot on my own regarding that. But I would talk to Natalie about problems I was having with the rig, and she would basically see me like working out like the rig. Because we had like a little chat, and I would be like, okay, I need the arm to do this. I'm going to do this. No, that didn't work. Okay, I need to do this. And like it worked, and she's like, I'm sorry, I was in the bathroom.
It's like a little problem-solving center, but I'm not even present. It's just Bailey working through like my brain, my mind. It's huge.
We're the world's best therapist. It's just like a coat on a chair.
I just needed like somewhere, and like sometimes Natalie would be like, "Have you tried doing this?" And I was like, "Fixed it."
Yeah, it was nice to also like just talk to each other throughout and be like, "Oh wow, you tackled a lineless style in yours, which was crazy." I looked at that and I was like, "Oh no."
I know how to do a lineless style, but it's very heavy duty.
What was the biggest challenge on that?
So the thing with the lineless style is there are no lines outlining the arms or any joints or anything. So if you have a color on the arm and it goes on your face, the arm disappears. Because, pretend my face was not like red but like it would disappear, right? Like you wouldn't be able to see the definition between my arm and my face, which is a problem when you're animating because you want clear silhouettes. So I had to go and add lines on a hidden layer. So whenever it overlapped, they'd show up. But when it wasn't overlapping, it would be like lineless. So this hand here would be lineless, but this part of the arm here would have lines, and then this would be lineless. And then if, like, the arm overlapped here, it would have a line, but it'd be lineless in the rest of the spots, kind of thing. So I had to do that for every part that was the same color. And it was usually the arms and the legs. So I ended up, like, figuring out how the arms overlapped, how the legs overlapped, how the arms overlapped with the legs, and the legs overlapped with the arms, and how they overlapped with the face, and how the shirt overlapped with the... But I had to, like, take away the arms overlapping and the legs overlapping with each other because it made the rig really heavy and leggy. And they were like, this is not good. I'm like, okay, so I just put shadows on. So whenever you go to render the actual scene, you can turn the shadows on, and then one arm will be darker than the other. And I was like, that was the easiest solution I could figure out, just because it was a really heavy rig.
Is there an option to do like a gradient on the appendages, or
Yeah, you can do gradients.
so it just implies? I mean, it would just
That's what I did. That's what I did with the shadows. I put gradients that you can move on the arms.
But it's just super laborious, or like it's just heavy processing.
Easier. No, that's easier.
Oh, okay.
That's the end route I did. So I have like a gradient shadow that is clipped to an entire arm. So if this arm goes in front, you can turn that gradient on, and it will have that depth.
It'd be awesome if you watched it back and none of the limbs ever cross anything, and you're like, "You mother!"
I mean, that would also be good, because then you don't have to deal with it like flickering a shadow on. I don't know. I hope they figure it out. I kind of left after I had to do those arm shadows, so I hope the animators are having an okay time with it.
Shout out to the animators to figure out my rig. Good
Shout out
luck.
to Smiley Guy. I hope the kid rigs are working well.
Wow. Well, at least so you got to leave that behind, and now you're back at Sheridan.
Yeah.
Back in the calm.
Back into the pits.
You want to talk about Sheridan? Up to you.
Yes. Okay, we will. So Sheridan is like this prestigious school in Ontario, and it's like kind of a big deal in Canada, and I guess it's a big deal around the world. I don't know. It claims that it's like the best on the earth for animation.
Sheridan has a reputation, and I think it's the only bachelor's of animation you can get in Canada. Yeah. Yes. So if you want a bachelor's in animation, that's where you have to go.
Yeah.
So
and it's
we're
there.
there.
Like claimed that it's like the Harvard of animation. I've heard this before.
That's my favorite line. I laugh about it a lot.
So it totes
everyone
this
wears
big
sports
thing.
coats and goes kayaking on the weekends and stuff. Is
I
that basically
wish
what
that would
means?
be awesome.
That would be fun.
But like, it's this big deal. The animation program, like, you know, they have all this stuff catering towards the animation program. It's been going since like the 80s or before then. You know,
Something like that, yeah.
Disney was once like part of like funding for Sheridan, but then they stopped because of reasons.
Wow,
Do
history.
we know the reasons?
I don't know anything for sure, so it's just a bunch of hearsay. So I won't say anything.
Sheridan, Disney stopped giving us money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this program didn't start as a bachelor's either. I think it became a bachelor's in the earlier 2000s.
They switched
maybe.
over.
I don't know the exact date, 08
Yeah.
or something. But yeah. So we're there. We're students there. We're entering our fourth year. We are in our fourth year. And there's been some problems. I mean, not to say every program is perfect, not to say I expected this program to be perfect, but considering its rep, you know, you expect quite a lot, I suppose. And I would say the students have been let down severely due to it's numerous things, really. And one of the pains of such a high prestige program and something being a bachelor's is there's a lot of regulation around it. Administration has to approve things, and the Ministry of Education has to approve things. Last year, actually, second year was when we started saying things to the administration. A group of students from our year 2 years ago went to the dean of our faculty and was like, hey, and they had a whole presentation that had a lot of like stats, but basically a lot of students were suffering RSIs, which are repetitive stress injuries. A lot of students have bad mental health. We had 26 hours of class a week, which honestly is more than it should be in any program. Because I think every credit, now I'm going to say this wrong.
It's like something, it amounts to like an hour of studying or something.
A course credit should be an hour of class time and 2 hours of homework. Right. Just on a technical basis. And so in that regards, we were working 60 plus hours a week, which is unhealthy, I think,
jobs,
for anyone.
Some
people have to work to afford to be here. Tuition isn't that cheap, especially for bachelors.
Especially for international students.
Particularly for international students. So people went to the dean and unfortunately we were kind of brushed off. We were offered new chairs and stress balls.
Yeah,
stress balls?
They were like, oh yeah, we'll do that. But like some of the teachers that were approached were like, oh, that's just how it is. That's just how it always has been.
It's just the industry.
It's just
or whatever.
always, if you can't work that hard, then you shouldn't be in this industry. And it's like, maybe that's a problem that there's like people. I had friends who dropped out because of repetitive strain injuries. They had to go like to the hospital and stuff, and they had to take weeks off of drawing. And then when they came back, they couldn't catch up to the workload.
Yeah.
And it was basically do it or leave. And it's like, okay, I guess I'm leaving. Like,
that's such. I hate that excuse. That's just how it goes. It's how it is in real world. It's like it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, there were there were some professors that were like, go get those accommodations and stuff. Like a lot of the professors are really good. It's the administration we mainly have a problem with, because they don't necessarily know what animation students go through.
Yeah.
And
They don't have the real experience of how you actually create the work, the art.
Yeah, we were like, the ergonomics of the studio are not good. We have these chairs that don't like reach the like right height for like having a 90-degree hand. Our backs are hurting, so we're hunching, and then like all our weight is on our wrists, and then we can't draw. And so we were given chairs and stress balls, but we didn't get to use the chairs because they came in after the pandemic started.
COVID happened. But I would say the core issue really is, for any of this, is workload and course curriculum load. And then last year, 2020, as the COVID was at its peak and we were starting online school, we kind of fought for a reduction in tuition. The international students got an increase in tuition, which is very cool of them. But they were paying more to be taught online, and we got a slight reduction, but I noticed later we were still charged studio fees.
The one fee they decided to drop was studio fees. But they
everything
dropped that
else
first
stayed.
semester, second semester they just snuck that back in there, and I was like, "Oh, that's great because we're not using the studios, so it's great that you're charging us for it."
And so third year is somehow worse than second year because we have a similar course load, 20 hours again a week of class, but on top of that we have the group film, and the group film isn't treated as curriculum. I mean, it is, because you'll have to do it.
But it's outside of, like, class hours. It's not, like, marked down as a set hour. You kind of figure it out on your own time. So they have this schedule of, like, 9 classes or whatever, And then plus your group film, which happens whenever you have a time off. Plus it's online, so you can be reached at any time. So you're basically working on it all the time with no shut off. And you have mentor meetings, and you have to work on a portfolio and get a job, and do the co-op curriculum stuff. And if you have an actual job, because I know some people in third year have a part-time job somehow, it is hell. Like, you know, like I didn't have my part-time job was tutoring, but like I could barely manage that. Like,
It was very strenuous with co-op and group film not being treated as part of curriculum, and then giving us a full curriculum load on top of that. And so, and it was online, and we were paying about the same amount, so it was just ridiculous. And I mean, we made it. A lot of us made it.
At what
Definitely
cost,
people
though?
have dropped out.
Like,
yeah. At what cost to my sanity? And I think last summer when it was announced again we would be virtual and tuition was probably not going to be changed. At this point, we were like,
well, might as well finish.
You guys don't listen to us. It's kind of hard. We managed to get a meeting with the dean at the time, or she's the standing dean because the actual dean went on maternity leave. And she did divulge to us that the curriculum itself is set
for like
the ministry
years.
for a 7-year period, and we were the first year to get the
it's
new
basically
curriculum.
like this. And like the other problem is that you can't like specialize. So like, you know, I get in first year and second year not specializing, but third and fourth year you start knowing what you want to do. So I had this layout class that I was never going to because one, I wasn't on the layout team in my group film. So why would I be going? And two, I didn't want to do layout as a job. So like I just didn't go. So
it's just an extra 2 class hours plus however much homework I had to do for it that I kind of did, but like it was just added on to everything. But it's not relevant to my career anymore at this point. I know what I'm doing. So the fact that we cannot specialize, we actually told the dean, and she runs, she deals a lot with the film classes, and she's like, oh, you guys don't like streamline in third year?
They're
That's
like,
really
oh,
weird,
you
'cause
need
we
to
do.
be the jack of all trades, and I get that. But that's in first and second year you could do that. You need, there's no time to like do good work for the work that you want to, and they'll be like, oh, just time manage for the ones that you want to do, but like some
get an F in the others?
Some people need the good grades because of their parents, because of bursaries or scholarships. You know, they need it. Like, they need to get those high grades and everywhere else. And it's like some profs will be like, well, you just have to accept that you're not going to get high grades and everything. And it's like, that's fine, but you have to also acknowledge that can't be everyone's situation, right? Like, so like, you know, I put more effort in my 2D rig stuff, obviously, and I didn't do anything for layout. I didn't, and you know, like for stop mo, I love stop mo, but it wasn't what I was gonna do. So,
Not career.
Stop mo being mandatory.
yeah, which was also a problem because you know, stop mo class usually get access to the actual equipment at school, but a lot of people don't have room to set up a little stop mo studio thing and like have to reassemble it each time. Like, my roommate had problems with that. I just left mine on my little drafting table. But, you know, it was hard for a lot of people. Or, like, sometimes people are like, oh, you know, you gotta do this. And it's like some people don't have the space because they live in a small apartment with their, like, 5 family members or something, you know?
Yeah. It's fair to say people overcome challenges, but also I think you shouldn't unnecessarily hinder or injure your students or burn them out before they get to the industry.
From your students is all I can say. Like, we don't get the opportunity to do.
Your resilience shouldn't be a cop-out for someone else, right? Like, the fact that you can overcome challenges doesn't mean someone should still throw them all at you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also wild that anyone's advice, especially a college, would be, oh, we'll just ignore those classes. If that's your advice, then
why
don't
am I
give
paying
us the
for
class.
them?
Can you mention again, like when you find there's a problem maybe in the system or you want it to improve, how do you stand up and start with the communication and how is it going?
So first thing you got to do is gauge interest. So we talked to our year, we noticed that everyone was complaining about this stuff pretty frequently, and we were like, okay, let's do something about it then, because I'm tired of this, like, complaining and nothing happening. So you get everyone together, you know, and you we like started like a Google document of like problems we want to address, you know, make arrangements to see who you have to ask who can change this, like, you know, so you go to that person and be like, hey, this is a problem, can we have a meeting, you know, and you record the notes of the meeting, you record what got done. Over time, you notice if anything has changed. Like, we talked to the third years and stuff, and we're like, hey, have they fixed this thing? And if they haven't, we're like, great. So we've kind of trying to tell, we have some third year friends that were like, hey, make sure they like fix this, like, because we've been on the prior years coming, the next year's coming in, they don't know that we've done this stuff. And then they're like, hey, we have a problem with this. And then the administration's like, this is the first time we're hearing about this. Oh my God. And then they'll be like, I can't believe no one said this. And it's like, we said that, you know, and it's like, there's feedback forms every year that, like, you know, it's like, what's the problem with the class? And it's like, we tell them, so it's not like they don't know. So you kind of have to have like a paper trail of what's happened, you know, take notes. Make sure people who are coming in know what's going on, which we kind of need to do a bit more. You know, after going in to the administration, like a couple of times, like we went a lot. We ended up doing.
Yeah, I can put on record that from our second year, at the very least, I know of a group of students went to the dean at the time, presented all the info on the RSIs. I could say myself, I collected info from my classmates on, hey, why the muscle test, which is a big test we have in figure drawing, isn't really conducive to learning, and it's actually very stressful in the middle of a lot of other work. And I talked to the professor about that. This past year, during our third year, we got a bunch of us to meet with Catherine Thomas, who is the acting dean or associate dean of the time, and she talked to us a couple times and collected our feedback, as well as the program coordinator. We've gone to them.
And emails have been sent many times and have been addressed.
Emails are sent often. So it has been years, right? And I think if anyone noticed, I guess this is what we're trying to address. There was a online social media thing that we tried to do because at that point, it's not like we haven't approached the administration. It's not like we haven't talked to people in the process, but just
I know for a fact prior years
really
to us, they talked to the previous dean as well. Like when there was the strike happening, they're like, hey, we want a refund. Like this stuff is happening and we're not getting – the strike went on for like at least a month or more. Yeah.
5 weeks or something.
They strike?
Yeah. And they didn't
That
get any instruction during that time, which, you know, teachers are going on strike. They should have been able to get that month of tuition back. What they got was you can drop out, or you can, if you're in financial need, apply to this grant thing that will give you like maybe $500. If they think you need it enough. And it's only going to like 6 people or something. And it was like, I went to this meeting with Angela, I think was at the time. She was the dean at the time. And I went to the meeting and I took the notes, and there were all these angry animation people, and they were like, oh no, it's okay, we're going to fix it. And then they didn't do anything. You know, I know a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to be mean because they're trying their best. And it's like, you're paying for this service. You're allowed to critique it, you know? Oh, boo-hoo, the administration has feelings. Well, I have feelings too. And there is a history of them just like steamrolling over the students and just like, oh, well, we know best. We're getting the money still, you know? We haven't fixed this problem and we're still getting money, so we're not going to fix it, you know? And
it's easy to not do anything because Sheridan still has its reputation and people are still going to pay you year to year to be here.
And I'm sure there's nice people in administration, but like administration overall as like a force to be reckoned with, like they need to make some changes. Come on. Like a lot of people were scared about the Sheridan Sucks hashtag, which we used on Twitter. If you want to go look through that hashtag, it was a call to action to get people's attention, you know? Like, we said Sheridan sucks, like, but a lot of people thought that was too derogatory against Sheridan, or it would ruin the students' reputation. I'm like, I think we're all being very professional when we're calling out Sheridan. We're bringing up personal experiences. We're not saying, Sheridan f***ing sucks. We're just like, hey, this is something I've experienced at Sheridan. It's been hard. It's been difficult. I've gone through this. Here's some statistics that we got together. We've gone through this, you know. And it's been, like, very factual, but also there's some emotion behind it. But it's not just, like, us slogging on baseless things at the school. So I thought it was perfectly justified. And, you know, our goal was to let hopefuls know what they were getting into, you know, like, because they don't hear anything from anyone about the program. They just hear, it's the Harvard of Animation. If they hear actual animation students coming forward like, hey, this has been a problem for years. Like, it's not worth it. And they're like, maybe I shouldn't go to Sheridan until they fix this, you know? That was our goal, so. Because nothing was changing.
As artists, as students in this community, you guys will keep informing to each other, even to the new student, to understand the situation or environment. So people should be aware of what they are assigned for. And what I learned from you guys sharing is like, it's not only art, but you also need to be aware of the network, be aware of how that vibe, how is that mood, that environment bring you. Is it toxic or is really can push you improve and to be a better working environment for you?
Yeah.
I do want to say one of my friends is starting at Sheridan, but they're in the game design program. And this is giving me perspective as well, because they're talking how the very first week, the professors mentioned, hey, so last year we collected data from all the students. We figured out which weeks were the most stressful and the hardest, and we've adjusted accordingly. Like, we switched assignments so that they don't line up too closely, and that they're not worth, like, it's not like a big assignment and another one in the same week. We've made sure that students can't overwork themselves by setting deadlines to 10 p.m. so they just stop working. The studios are locked past a certain time, so you can't stay in there working overnight. And I think something big that drives that, I know it's crazy, right? That hearing that made me angry because I was like, wow, they care about the students' workload and how much they're stressed and like just a good work environment for them. And they said it's because they're trying to create the industry they want to see.
Good.
The games industry is notorious for like overwork and burnout and mistreating people. And so interestingly enough, the professors there genuinely, they understand, they're also current working professionals, right? So they are in the games industry, they're like neck deep in it, and they're teaching this new generation, and they understand that this is something important and they work towards that. Whereas I'm feeling like just after hearing that from my friend, like just one person first week of game design. Very cool. I was like, is it because the animation industry doesn't recognize this yet? Like, no one's really called out animation on overwork
There's been
and
some
burnout.
voices,
and,
but it hasn't been everywhere.
It's super niche, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it's not as huge as
because it also gets treated like it's very similar to the games industry. There's that crunch. There's the mistreatment of like underpaid workers, especially with in regards to like Canadian studios working for American studios, they don't get credited as much. They get paid less for the same job, all that kind of stuff, it's coming up more light. And I think it's really important to like encourage that kind of behavior in your schools, because that's where it's coming. We're going to be the future of the industry. And if I feel like if everyone's too scared to talk about these problems, then, they're never going to get fixed. And maybe that's the goal. Maybe they don't want unions. Maybe they don't want people, being like, hey, this is right. I think we should all be a little bit more like, hey, I'm standing up for my rights as a worker. Because when I was talking to even film people, like my friends were friends with some film people, and they were talking to me about like the unions that the film people get into and like how they educate them on their rights and stuff in the film school, and I was like, why aren't we learning this stuff? Like everyone's like, oh, I don't want to cause problems. And I'm just like, well, you're not doing it unjustified, right? You're not just like, I don't like this, so I'm not doing it. It's like, this is causing actual mental and physical harm. Like, I've seen it happen, and it ruins artists. Like, don't you want to have a healthy, good industry?
Well, like you both said, you pay them to be there. Like, if you have a problem with Apple or a problem with like any of your, if you had a problem with Harmony, you'd email customer support.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
if you have a problem with the college, they don't exist without you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's true. Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I think there needs to be a bigger attitude change, more than just like, hey, we're students and our wrists hurt. Like, we are going to be the industry. Like later on, and if this is the work environment you're cultivating as we're in school, it's just going to be what we're used to.
You're never
and
going to recover from those RSIs either. You're going into the industry.
Also, yes, it's kind of permanent. So your arms are important. So I think we should have a higher standard. And I'm super impressed with what I'm hearing of the game design program, which is a much newer program. And I wish that attitude was there in Sheridan Animation, which is their prized bachelor's program, right? I wish they had more of that kind of attitude.
You two are really impressive. Like, just to be able to, I mean, like, but to be strong enough and have the courage to stand up and say something to a school and go to the dean. Like, you had a meeting with the acting dean, like,
There's
but the dean of the college
working towards this. It's not just.
But that's just,
I definitely have to say we're not the core of this movement thing.
still commendable. Yeah.
I really appreciate it. And I feel just keep the communication going, because the purpose for this is really like we help each other, help the school, help the community, the artists, the teachers, like to bring up the best quality of ourselves. So our work can also be better, right? Because the cycle, like it's always can be more healthy. And another thing I feel excited when getting to know you guys is that when we back to the group project, in the beginning, you were saying that you are in part of the team, like story or social media. It's more simple. But when it goes to production, you guys become more and more of the leader in this group. Would you like to share with us why you feel that you're ready for this?
We both decided we didn't want to be leaders. The moment the group film started, we were like, oh man, I'm too tired to be project manager. Like, I don't really necessarily want to. And we did have two like good PMs on the job. And Anaya and Maddie, like they did their best. They absolutely like were pulling their weight as project managers. I think it was just that towards the second semester, we were somehow the two people with the best understanding of the pipeline.
Yeah, we've done some short
what
films.
kind of
your past experience led you have the knowledge already. You know what is going on. Okay.
Yeah. And so I think for me also, I'm okay with crunching numbers. And so I couldn't get through. I felt like I couldn't get through the film without knowing, right? Like how many seconds of animation, how many weeks do we have? Like how do I break this down?
Yeah,
like, can
there was
somebody
no
tell me?
breakdown.
And no one.
There was just like, oh, we got to do the film, and I'm like, I need to know like how far we are. Like, what do we have to do? Like knowing what you have to do is how you know what to get done. Like you can't just go, oh yeah, we have to animate and do some stuff. I'm like, I need to know what animations, how long are they?
Specific.
You know, like what needs to get done in the animations, or else you're never going to know and you're never going to be able to tackle it. You'll just be like, oh yeah, we're still animating. You won't feel like any progress has happened, and that makes me anxious. I have really bad anxiety with like, you know, I need to know what's going on. I have ADHD, so I like writing down all my deadlines ahead of time so I can actually be on time because I forget when things are due, so I write them down. But I didn't have that structure in second semester. We were behind, but people didn't think we were behind or didn't think we had to do certain things. And like, no, you got to do these things so you know where you are. So we kind of like stepped up and did that.
Yeah, because we took initiative and I made like charts of like, this is every scene, this is how long this is, how much I calculate our seconds. I think eventually I ended up as third project manager at some point in that semester. Just because of the need to, like the itch to like, I need to know, and I know the group needs to know, and I don't know how to explain to someone how to calculate this or how to do it. I will just take the initiative and do it. I think that's how.
Plus, we're used
it
to like
ended up
tutoring.
happening.
We tutor people. Natalie used to tutor people to get into the program. I'm still tutoring people who want either building portfolios for other things or just portfolios for the animation program. I'm good at scheduling people. This is when you have to have this done. This is how. So we're kind of used to doing those spreadsheets and schedules and stuff beforehand, which maybe some people weren't. So yeah, it felt more natural for us, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Which is why we could hop in and do it because we're used to doing it. Like we did like a short film a long time ago for like the 24-hour film week or whatever that Sheridan is the student run one. That isn't like the actual competition, so you actually get a week to do it.
Wow.
So we made a film in a week, and we made like little production schedules, like a fox and a crow, and the crow had hiccups. It's called Hiccup.
Oh, that's fun.
Can we see? Is this available online somewhere to look at?
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
It is. It's on YouTube.
I think if you look up Hiccup.
It's pretty old, but it's fun. And yeah, I also had a summer job the year before my co-op, where I did a small production, I guess. It was like a trailer for a show that this company wanted to make. And so I also had some experience working. I saw their spreadsheets, right? Whatever. It was a kind of student run, but whatever happened there, I kind of took as well. And I was like, okay, yeah, knowing, what scenes and everyone being able to check it off on this is very important to
and
the
then
workflow.
So back to like the end of the production, I was able to catch things that we were missing that maybe Natalie had forgotten about. I was like, hey, going down the things looking for green, and like, we haven't done this yet, and she's like, oh shit. So we would like divide the work up that day depending on that, So Natalie was my rock during group film. I would have gone insane.
You were my rock.
I would have gone insane without her there because we kind of kept each other on track.
That's amazing. Yeah. So it's like, okay, from the 24 hours that assignment and also from the studio project, you already got some example or some ideas about, okay, if we have a production, how are we going to run it? But how about when you are actually doing this short? Because every short will have every different kind of situation, right? They have all different kind of development. So how do you search for other examples to put into this case, or how do you adapt to come up and help to have a very clear direction or idea to the whole group?
Okay, so we are taught about the pipeline in school. Like, we get this nice sheet that's like, here's how the pipeline works. But we never learn it in practicality. Like, some people learn it in the short film workflow, but it's a little bit different because it's really short. You make like a 30-second film each month or whatever. That's a class you can take at Sheridan in animation. It's an elective. But, a lot of us don't take it, so we're not used to managing our time like that. So the first thing to figuring out what the pipeline looks like for your film is determining what you want and how you're going to do it. And if you know the tools to achieve that. So, a lot of people were like, oh, I want to have this cool effect thing. We'll do it in After Effects. And it's like, we don't know how to use After Effects. Like, we were going to do this cool smoke thing. It was like, oh, we'll leave it to later. We're going to do a cool smoke thing. And it's like, we don't have experience in After Effects and we've never done this. Why are we leaving it to After Effects? We should just animate the smoke, because we know how to do that. So stick with what you know how you're familiar with, and then go from there. So we were learning some new things in Toon Boom, but me and Natalie were very familiar with Toon Boom, so we could launch off of that point. So, we'd figure out, so do we want to do a lined film, lineless film? What style is it in? What kind of animation are you doing for it? Are you using rigs? What do you want the final rendered look to look like? And Natalie did a couple tests with the render for the composite. Here's a small example. During the compositing section, we were like, let's try some effects out. So I was figuring out how to add the steam lines for gas, because I was like, right now it just looks like a blue flame. And I was like, this is not reading as gas, and everyone thinks it's fire. So I went through the Toon Boom effect nodes and was like, is there anything that can do this? And there was one that was for water ripples. And so I figured out how to add that to the animation, and then boom, it looks like gas more. It's not perfect, but doing that kind of stuff will help you figure out what is good for your pipeline, and getting everyone on the same page about what the work entails will help you figure out your pipeline.
Yeah.
I
think something about the pipeline is pretty intuitive or logical to me. Some parts of it, right? Where hey, okay, we want to animate, but you can't animate until you have the layouts because you want to know your staging and positioning. Or, okay, and we can't animate till we have the Leica reel that's timed and cut out, because you need the timing of the film. And then once you've done the animation, do you want to use rigs? If so, we have to rig before that. So a lot of it works out pretty logically to create a pipeline. I don't think it's overwhelmingly complicated as long as you know what you need in order to do this stage. There's no way we were animating for semester because we didn't have layouts, we didn't have rigs, we didn't have timed out Leica quite yet either. So you figure out sequentially what can be done at the same time and what should be done.
And knowing how long something takes. Knowing how long something takes is so important. But you only really know if you do it a lot. So I know for animation, it can take me... It takes me a week to do a couple of seconds. For that instance, before third year, I was it takes me a couple seconds to do that, because I do a lot of revisions in that time. So, leaving that time allotted for yourself will make things a lot less stressful if you know how long things take. It takes me this long to do rigged animation, and this is when I'm cutting it off. Because rigged animation can be, tweaked infinitely. So it was we would get a lot of notes on our finished rigged animation, and it's I don't have time to fix that. We're moving on now. Knowing that things can't be perfect is also a good thing.
I'll keep saying animatics. I'm sorry. Leica. You're Leica.
How do you spell that?
I know.
Same
It totally confused me.
Leica. Okay.
In Canada and in some old Disney circles, Leica was the word they used instead of animatic.
Leica is for storyboards timed out, and animatic is with rough animation.
Yeah.
Nice.
So when I came on, because the temp music you had was kind of more just throughout, just incidental background, and then we decided to go with, well, let's hit a bunch of spots. We have it. We're going to do a kind of comedic. How did that change your timeline, where now there were scenes where the montage, we had to have frame accurate, basically, spots now?
Yeah. That made
it helped us, honestly.
Yeah, that was pretty good, because that meant we had to lock our group in.
That's what I was going to say. I was it was an excuse for us to be no, you can't change it.
No, just, that's how it is.
One of our biggest problems was professors, some of our group mates really valued professors' input, and you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt, because some of the professors are telling us to change big story moments when we're in production, halfway through production. And it's we can't change it. We're not changing it. And if they wouldn't listen to us, we could be well, our composer has already done this and this, so you can't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, group members. I love you.
For anyone watching or listening, I could have made any changes we wanted, just for the record. I wasn't being stubborn, but we would have lost. So we had an amazing jazz sextet called the Queen's Cartoonists who were going to perform the score.
Bless
and
them.
they were going to be leaving. The studio they had they were moving out of. So if we had pushed back the deadline pretty much at all, we would have lost live musicians.
Which me and Natalie really, really wanted.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
elevated
it's
the
a
film,
million times
so
better.
it was worth it.
The mock-ups are fine. Live musicians are better. It's just how it goes. But yeah, so I wasn't being super strict. It's just like if we wanted live musicians, we couldn't delay.
Yeah, the way things were working out, it was basically ideal in our minds to be like, hey, group, we have to lock this in. And honestly, I think it's a good thing anyways, because adjusting things takes time, and the more time we took away from production, which is animating,
We would have never finished.
we
our
would have
film,
not finished the film. And so I think that just changed it so that when we were like timing out the Leica, we were like, hey, by this point, it will be timed, and it's exactly how the film will go. Like, we cannot change this. And I honestly think it's a good thing. So
You can change small things in the animation.
Right.
Like, you can change a certain thing you can't change how long. Well, some of the scenes did end up slightly longer, slightly shorter, but, like, overall, keep them the same kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
So, because I think there's a point where you have to be decisive about that.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Absolutely. Like,
Yeah,
I
good
mean,
point.
you have to make decisions, go follow them through, and then when you're done, you go like, okay, cool. What can I go back and tweak now? But yeah,
Exactly.
and then you also did add time code for me. Thank you very much.
Yes, we did.
very important. Yeah.
It was interesting
Very
working
well.
in different programs because sometimes the time codes were different. Like, I think in Audition, the time code was different than the Premiere time code. So
Was it-
it was
Like the hour?
yeah, it had
or-
like different, like the seconds were different in Audition for me when I was doing this fully. I noticed because I had the video up and I was doing the sound effects to the video. The time
Yeah.
code would be off slightly from the Audition time code, and I was like, why? I wonder why that is.
I don't either.
I have no idea.
Audition. Anyone listening to this,
Yeah,
just avoid it.
it was weird. It was like almost on, but it was slightly off, and it annoyed me so much. It was like, did I move the video off? No, it's
There's no
perfectly lined
almost.
up.
I'll tell you, when it comes to time code, the reason there should never be an almost on or almost off. It's like you go on a long product, you go down like an hour and a half into and go like, am I still in the exact right frame? Yes,
Exactly.
good. Like there's no almost.
When I
That's
brought
why
it
we
into
have-
Premiere, it was perfectly lined up. So I just think it's an Audition thing. It's just different. I was like, that's so weird. It's in the same suite. It should be the same. Yeah.
So it basically locked you in, and it just pushed you to finish certain scenes first.
Yeah.
Shall we bring in our previous guests' question
Oh
for
yeah,
Natalie
yeah.
and Bailey? Yeah.
How do you take the overall concept and turn it into bite-sized chunks so it is concrete and executable? What is your process of making the vague idea real?
Wow.
That's a thinker.
That's a big one.
Can you repeat it again?
Can
Yes,
you
I
make
can.
this
I can
bite-sized for
verbatim.
us?
Yeah.
Yes. How do
All right,
You.
just
Yes,
full
me.
thing.
me. How do you shorten it to actually make it into a product kind of thing?
Yeah, from
Or
a
until you
spark
figure it
into execution.
Okay, well, I can kind of think, okay, is it okay if I start? Okay.
Sure.
So, I'll go with my thesis idea, even though it's not finished right now, but it's more narrowed in.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
how I came up with my thesis idea was I live in an apartment and the elevator is really, really slow. And sometimes some weird people get on the elevator with me. They're nice people. You know, so it's like I thought, I was thinking of it at first for my short film class. I was like, what if I do, a film about how someone's always in transit? Because, I always think about how people, a lot of the time when they commute, they spend most of their day in commute, like hours in commute. They lose most of their day from commuting. So it's like, what if I had,
Yeah.
that feeling of like, oh, I'm exhausted just from getting from some, like, what if they went to the place, were there for 5 seconds, and then had to go home and fall asleep? You know, because that's what it feels like when you take the bus, go in my elevator, which takes 50 hours. You know, that's my general idea. And then I was like, okay, what could happen in the elevator? I always think, what would make me laugh, you know? What would I like to see? You know, I don't care about other people. It's just like, what do I think's funny? And I was like, okay, well, what if there's neighbors on the elevator that you commonly hear, like, complaints about? Like, oh, this person's always stomping on the floor above me, and the reason is they come in the elevator and they have giant shoes. Or, like, you know, people are, you know, the TV's always on or something, and, like, the person goes in the elevator, they have a TV head, and it's like, oh, they are the TV, like, they can't help that, you know? Because you kind of, when you go in the elevator and people come on, you kind of see into their lives a bit. So I was like, what can I portray with that? And then it kind of evolved more into, I came up with these gags. You know, there would be a cockroach on the couch when he went up to his room, and the cockroach is making out with his girlfriend, and he's like, do you mind? Like, can you, like, go to your room? And he's like, oh my God, I'm sorry. Because, you know, sometimes you get roommates like that. Like, I have heard stories of people with bad roommates, but then also, like, every apartment in Oakville has cockroaches. You know, so, you know, I thought that would be funny because it was like a statement of, like, living in an apartment. But then it kind of changed less about the apartment and more about the journey for me. So now I'm making it kind of more about, like, a spiritual journey and finding yourself. Like, it's about making a good impression on your neighbors and, like, how weird your neighbors may be, but you're more concerned about yourself. But then you learn that they accept you, you know? It's a little bit about trans people because I'm going through my own transition with testosterone right now. But, like, you know, it kind of has, like, evolved over time. Like, don't be afraid to, like, take an idea and just let it sit for a bit and then come back to it. Because, like, I came up with this idea in, like, first, second year. And then I came back to it at the end of third year, and now I'm doing it. And it's changed so much. Like, there was going to be a wedding scene on the elevator. There's not now. So there's just, like, a bunch of creatures that have come in, and the more I work on it, the more I, like, narrow it down, and I'm, like, thinking now, like, what's the overall theme? Like, can I add a theme to this? Is it just a funny short? You know? That's kind of how I go through it,
So when you had the idea of the elevator, like, did it click? Was it, so two parts of this. One is, did you just one day, like, look at the elevator and go, oh, that's an idea? And then did you formally, like, sit down and go, like, what can I do with this? How did you, like, technically get from A to B on that?
So I you know, the elevator ride was really long because I'm on the top floor. So I had a lot of time to think. So I thought about it once, and then, like, every time I went into the elevator after that, I would think about it more. So every time I was in the elevator, I thought about it. But I never formally wrote it down. I just thought about it. Because, like, every time I'm on, like, in transit, that's the name of my film, you know, but every time I'm in transit, I'm just, like, I always, like, kind of wander, and I'm just, like, you know those things where you look at the car and you're like, I'm in a music video. Like, listening, and you're listening to your music, and you're like, it's raining outside, and you're, like, touching the window, and you're like, I'm looking outside the window. This is the opening to my movie, you know, like, kind of thing. It's like, I was like, okay, what would my transit movie be? And I was like, well, mine wouldn't be moody. It would just be really stupid and funny. So that's, like, kind of, like, how I came up with the idea. And, like, I guess it had been something that I kind of talked about with my roommates. I was like, you know, wouldn't that be funny? And then, like, when third year came around, they were like, you have to write a prompt for a film. And I was like, oh, what do I have? I was, like, shuffling through my mind papers. I'm like, oh, in transit. And so that's the one that I ended up keeping work on.
I like the idea of, like, as the idea formalized, like, the elevator, actually, the light goes ding, and the doors open. You're like, oh, I
yeah,
get it.
that was the idea. And I also, like, the pun Natalie gave me for when I was pitching. I was like, oh man, I should pitch my elevator idea. And she's like, your elevator pitch? And I was like, oh.
Oh, it's right there. It was right there.
I couldn't
not.
So
Yeah.
I
awesome.
really like that.
It's interesting is that the concept and you being elevator and it's on top floor, so you keep interacting with it, so your brains keep running with it, and at a certain point you need to list out all the possible ideas, and then you kind of extract it into more.
Yeah,
Like,
you're like,
get
what
to
can
the
I
main
do
point
with
of
that?
your
Like, can I do something
Okay.
with this kind of idea? It's like, what if someone had water and you're like, can I make that funny? No, okay, different idea.
I mean, they made a movie called Waterworld. So, Natalie, how do you? Well, so I know your thesis story is a little like that. Was one of those out of thin air. I'd love to hear that too. But also, how do you do the more formal process?
Honestly, I think I don't have a lot of complex ideas. I'm a simple man.
Simple man.
I was sitting here like, what's the most complex thing I ever thought? And my thesis is ironically incredibly simple to the point where I'm actually having trouble with how simple it is. But I think for me, I'm pretty good at narrowing down like, what is the essence of this thing? I think I'll probably use our group film as an example, right? A lot of things happen in it, a lot of like fun chaos. We have a thing that I'm not going to spoil that all comes together and ties up at the end. But the essence of it is like a wife who really loves her husband, and that's what we want to get through. And I think narrowing down to what you want to communicate or what the theme should be is pretty important. And I also, one of the most valuable things I think while we were working on that film was being able to pitch it to our mentor, Jeff. Shout out to Jeff Astolfo. Anyways, no, he was really cool, and having another eye on it, coming from like, you've been in this like process and you've been in your own head and working with it, and it like lives there. But when you show it to someone who's never seen it or rarely sees it, they'll be able to be like, maybe you don't need that thing. Like that kind of dragged. That wasn't. We took out a big element during the storyboarding stage, which was the wife used to have a manual.
Shout out
like
to
a book.
Natalie.
Shout out to me because I edited it out of the boards in one crazy night of sleeplessness. But there was a manual, a book she would flip to. Oh, kill him with an axe. Okay. And then she goes and kills him with an axe. And she opens it again, right? And I don't know who said it was just dragging the whole thing. It might have been
couple
Jeff.
of classmates
Too. They were like, why the book? What? Like, you have to transition to it. Yeah.
And the cat.
And the cat. They wouldn't let me kill the cat with poison. No, it's okay. I mean, just paring it down, deciding what is necessary and what isn't, and being able to let go of elements.
It was so hard because I loved the book. I loved the book. So, and I love my wife, Natalie. We're not actually married, but she's my wife. So I was like, you're right.
But you need to make decision.
Right.
So I thought the best thing on my end was to actually show the group, this is what it looks like without the book. I'm okay if you guys hate it, but I have to put it here because I think it's worth considering. And so in the end, we went with that because they were like, oh, it works fine.
So having the idea like this one, oh, cool if, but how do you find the theme in that thing?
Yeah. How do you find the thread? Like, that's kind of hard.
It's kind of
that's
finding what you want to see. Like what do you want to see from it? Like, you kind of think like, so when this idea was pitched to us, we had to all like pitch our own ideas. And I was thinking, what will be the most fun? Because you're going to be working on this with 11 people for 8 months. I didn't really want to do something that was intense and moody. I was like, I want something fun because then, pitching stuff will be more fun. So I thought Anaya's pitch was the most fun because her idea was basically a wife just trying to kill her husband so she wouldn't be alone. And I was like, that's simple. That's the idea. Yeah. And I was like, there's more opportunities for gags. There's more opportunities for all this stuff. And so it was like a lot of throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what stuck. Which is what really helped us narrow it down, like being able to be like, okay, that's not working. Okay, this is working. I really think this is funny. How do we make it work with the rest of the film? Like, like,
I'll say it's a few things. Like first, like Bailey said, creator's intent. Do you personally, what do you want out of this, right? Do you want to do this for fun? Do you want to like evoke an emotion? Do you want to say something specific? And then another thing would be like that log line just right there. The wife's trying to kill her husband to be together. It's funny and it's sweet, and that's why you like it, right? And being able to remember that as you're adding stuff to it and not lose sight of that's where we started. Even if it changes, you'll have to figure out what that one log line would be as it switches up, which the group film didn't change too much. For Bailey, like you're saying, In Transit used to be about neighbors and apartment situation, but it became something
always
more.
Been about the elevator, though. It's always it's always kept to a man goes on an elevator and gets to his destination. It's always stayed that.
Classic film trope.
I know.
Yeah.
Hero's
From one
journey
point to
takes the
another.
elevator.
Yeah.
You kind of answered a little bit earlier too when you said at some point clamp down and go like, here's the thing.
Yeah.
This is the thing. And then just make the
You can
thing.
spend
and
so
you can go
long just
back, but-
waffling on stuff, you know? Like, at some points you get really frustrated because you've been waffling about something and everyone's like, doesn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. They're like, well, that could work. They're like, oh, that is fun. That's fun. And it's like, okay, but we need to make a decision. There was a pitching... there was a whole pitching session that we had where we were trying to narrow down the there's a Rube Goldberg. Okay, I'm not going to say anything more than that. There's a Rube Goldberg. It was really hard to nail that down because everyone's like, oh, this will be fun. Oh, this will be fun. Oh, that could work. Like nobody was shooting down anyone's ideas, which is good. You know, you don't want to have a closed off thing, but there's a point where you have to kind of just like
Make it
choose
happen.
which ones you want. So I was like, okay, I'll work on the Rube Goldberg and see which makes sense. So I was like, I need you guys to throw ideas at me so I can make them mesh. And after I had come up with it, people kept throwing ideas at me. I was like, no, it already works like this. I was like, it's done. Unless you guys want to do it. And they're like, no. And I was like, yeah. So
Rube
basically,
Goldberg. So
the
good.
Rube Goldberg came together with obviously help from the film mates. They gave me ideas for it. But I had to make sure it all worked together. And it basically stayed pretty much the same from when I pitched it to when it went to the end. So it's like finding out what works. If you're going to add something to it, does it work? You know, if you're going to take something out, does it still make sense? You know, because that was a lot of problems with the editing stuff we had from professors. They'd say, don't do that. And then we'd take it out and it didn't work. So it's like, do you want to rework this entire section so it works or just want to keep it in? So it's like also evaluating your time, you know.
That's a cool point there, though. Like your teachers might say something, or like how you two were slightly hesitant to give me feedback on stuff, and people always go like, "Well, these people know their so let's just try." It's like, no, like we're just humans. Everyone's just a human. Your teachers are just people. Like, so your opinion might be better. Like anything you say could easily be more correct and better than what I think or your professors think. It's just. We have practiced doing the thing more often, but like that doesn't mean we're right. So I like that you try it, you looked at it, you're like, no, and you went with what you knew was stronger. It's cool. That's the personality that stands up to the dean. and toilet paper is the dean's house.
We did not toilet paper anyone's house.
We did not.
For
Disclaimer.
legal reasons. No, we didn't do any toilet paper.
We can't go back to jail. No.
I'm not going back to jail.
Well, so now, I know you already wrote it down, but to make it official, your question for the next guest, which is another pair, by the way.
Ooh,
Dude,
excellent.
Tag team.
Please state your question for the next
You say
guest.
it now. Should we
All
say it
right.
at the same time? You say it. No, you say it.
I'll say it. So our question is, if you could animate the official music video to any song you want, which would it be and what medium would you use? Yeah.
I'm really excited for
Someone's
because
gonna
I think
definitely
you asked
have
this
this.
question for the right people.
Every animator has a music video that they've never animated. It's just the facts of life. I know I have like 3 in my head. They're all to ABBA songs. They're going to happen one day.
Is that the irony then? Every animator has several music videos they want to do, and they're also approached by a bunch of music people who want them to animate their videos for way too long.
All right.
It's like a
Man,
love
if
triangle.
you pay us the
It's
money,
perfect.
we'll have so much fun. You know?
Let's talk about promote yourself.
So I'm Bailey McLeod, and I'm
Yep.
the art booper on every single like social media that exists. Like that's BOOPER, the art booper. I have a website, theartbooper.com. Everything's linked on there, so if you go there, you'll find me.
So I'm Natalie Choi, and all my socials are under Lee Santanos, which is LeSantanos. Also have a website. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and mainly those two, but not very frequently anymore. So check the website for more detailed stuff, I guess.
Awesome.
Yeah. Do you guys use Twitch?
I do. I stream on Twitch.
Ooh, yes.
You need to get
You
back
want
into
to talk
it.
about it?
Man, I had a crappy laptop when I decided I wanted to stream on Twitch, so I didn't, and now I'm sitting here like I want to make a little VTuber thing because it's like rigging.
Oh my god! I started a VTuber. I started a VTuber model. So Natalie got me into Twitch because she was like obsessed with it, like during third year, and I was like, I want to stream with you. Oh, look at all the cool aesthetic stuff we did. So we like set up a thing. So like when we have a call together, our names light up on the stream. So keep an eye out for our streams, guys.
I can't wait until like 50 years from now where you're like this two old animator pros, like just now you have cigars for some reason, wearing trench coats, of course.
And we're streaming on Twitch.
Yeah, so follow social media.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you guys are ready for more Twitch or live,
I've been streaming
then
work.
we can know.
I've been streaming work on my film on Twitch. I do little notifications on Twitter, so if you want to catch me streaming my thesis work,
That's amazing. I will make it someday. And unfortunately, we do have to end this in a minute. You have to end this.
It's very short and sweet, okay?
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. Well, I just want to say thank you, everyone, for having us, and I hope our interview didn't make you too story bored. Get it? Bored?
Make sure, after listening, to get up, reach real high, and sketch your arms.
Oh, gosh. All right.
This has been Bailey
and Natalie, and we like your shorts. We didn't know what else to do.
The computer lag made doing that in sync a bit hard.
Oh, yeah. I was like, are you catching up? Oh, no.